Let's also tell you that oil dropped after a report said International Energy Agency has proposed the largest release of oil reserves in its history. The dollar edged lower. The release would exceed the 182 million barrels of oil that IEA member countries put onto the market in two releases in 2022 when Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, as per the media report. Equity markets also experienced volatility, with the S&P 500 index fluctuating between gains and losses, only to end the session down 0.2%. Asian shares rose 0.8% at the open, while sentiment for the artificial intelligence trade got a boost as Oracle Corp shares jumped 8% in aftermarket trading on better than expected revenue. All right, let's go across to Mithali once more. Mithali, what would you really advise the investors right now? And how do you really see the markets performing since Donald Trump has taken power?
That's a very, very important question that you're asking today. And, I think since Donald Trump has taken over, all we have seen in global markets, including U.S. markets, which are amongst the most stable in the world, we've just seen instability and a yo-yo movement is the word that I would use, because what we've essentially seen is so much uncertainty around every economic decision, and each and every announcement that he makes has so much bearing on the global economy. Not only on, the American economy, but on the global economy, be it tariffs, be it announcements around oil prices, be it announcements around manufacturing in America, and now today the war. Honestly, this has created a havoc in global markets, and investors around the world are rushing to gold and silver, and that's why we saw throughout last year this massive increase in gold and silver prices in a way that we haven't seen before, because those are the only assets that are all-weather assets, that are absolutely safety assets. So in my view, even today, for investors, the best course of action that I can generally advise, not as a specific advice to anybody, is that, one has to look at the trends in longer-term emerging sectors. Sectors like renewable energy are poised to, grow, because we know that energy independence is now going to be a goal for many, many countries. So definitely, renewable energy is looking sunny right now. And we have to also look at, other sectors like tech-driven sectors, because again, we know that we have to reduce our dependence on merchandise goods and increase our dependence on services exports to keep the growth going.
All right. Mithali, stay on with me. In fact, before we move ahead, I want to take another question with you, Mithali. We're talking about the uncertainty that we're seeing in LNG, the repercussions of the war also now hitting India. Amidst this, how do you think the oil and gas shortages are going to spiral and onto the stock market also, and combined with the fact how global trade is interrupted?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is a really concerning situation. Of course, firstly, I would like to say that, we don't, at this point, as per the government of India's official statements, India is not facing any shortage of LPG or LNG or coal or even other, of even crude oil. So that statement coming out very clearly that India has reserves, and India has also tapped into a diverse network of, oil imports, crude oil imports as well as LPG imports, in order to meet this situation. And even the Reliance refineries have increased the output of LPG production, and that is being, brought into the market. Secondly, I think the government is again managing the distribution situation very proactively. understanding that, there could be hoarding, understanding that there could be, a scenario where, there are unscrupulous actors who take advantage of the panic in the market, and they have evoked the Essential Commodities Act. And this allows the government to crack down on hoarding very, very seriously. So I think that is also, the effort they've taken. And the third point is around coal imports, and India has authorized for additional coal imports to be coming in of coking coal throughout this summer. Taking into account that summer is when power demand peaks, and one would use more coal instead of gas power plants in this next quarter. Again, taking into account the global supply shortages on LNG. So I think, combined, these steps are very critical for the immediate future when it comes to energy security. And I think the other point is really around renewables. Just today, I heard of 3 new contracts that have been awarded for solar plants. Large, almost 300 megawatt solar plants have been awarded across Gujarat. And these would be, powering the national grid. So again, really a step in the right direction. We need more and more state governments to now start taking the steps on solar and wind energy, because we know that these are the 2 alternatives that can reduce the dependence on non-renewables, on crude oil and coal both, because of course their impact on the environment and economy.
Right. Mithali, thank you very much for joining us, and